Joining us now to discuss this, Middle East expert Dr. Walid Phares, author of the book The Lost Spring, U.S. Policy in the Middle East and the Catastrophes to Avoid. Walid, we thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Congressman, for having me today.
And as you Skype in from Washington, D.C., I'm interested in your perspective, this exodus of Christians from a region where communities of believers date back in the scripture. If I'm not mistaken, when I was in Mosul, I was told that it's believed to be the ancient city of Nineveh that Jonah was visiting in the Old Testament. It plays a significant role in Holy Scripture.
It does. I mean, we're talking about biblical times. We're talking about early Christian churches, the Christian church of Mesopotamia, of Syria, of ancient Phoenicia, of Alexandria. This is where the apostles spread to first before they even reached Asia Minor or Europe. But beyond that, we're talking about real people today who have been ethnic cleansed. The number of Christians in Iraq 10 years ago were 1.5 million Christian, now not exceeding 350,000. And in the city of Nineveh, or Mosul if you want, there were about 15 to 20,000 Christians. Today, we would say zero, or we don't know. Maybe some people are still hiding. This is a real exodus. This is a real ethnic cleansing that, unfortunately, the United States administration and the international community didn't do much about.
Dr. Phares, we're going to listen to comments from Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council. He appeared last night on Fox News with Megyn Kelly. I'd like you to listen to what Tony Perkins had to say, then I'd like to get your reaction following these comments. Let's take a listen.
Christianity is now the most persecuted religion in this part of the world. Our administration remains silent on these issues. This administration has been silent continuously when Christians have been persecuted. And I'll tell you what I think is at the bottom of it is this administration is more concerned about offending Islamic states and Islamic nations than they are defending the long-standing policy that America has always had, that religious freedom is a human right, not just an American right.
Walid, do you agree with what Tony Perkins had to say there?
Not only I agree, I will put it in a different form. The one I wrote in my own book, The Lost Spring. The administration has been under the influence of an Islamist lobby, pressure groups who have been pushing the administration not to intervene in defense of Christian minorities in the Middle East. The Copts of Egypt, the Christians of Lebanon, of Syria, and now of Iraq, and many NGOs, many experts, including myself. When we write about the persecution of these minorities, you are attacked as an Islamophobe by this lobby here in Washington. This lobby, the Muslim Brotherhood lobby, the Iranian lobby, has paralyzed U.S. policy in the protection of the minorities, and now we see ethnic cleansing as a result of that.
Walid, you mentioned the Islamist influence on the administration and a cabal of Islamists, if you will, in Washington, D.C. Can you spell it out for us? Are there people in the administration specifically? Are there people in D.C. who are gaining prominence, different groups, different individuals? Who is part of this cabal pushing the administration into acceptance of an Islamist point of view?
Congressman, I may not go into the naming and names, but what I would do is refer not just to many, many think tanks and institutes and research committees and community leaders who have exposed the administration for being under the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood pressure group or lobby or the Iranian counterpart, but also in the Arab media. Not talking about American citizens, I'm talking about Egyptian journalists and investigators who out of the Middle East have been saying on and on again that the foreign policy of Washington, with regard to the Middle East at least, has been deeply influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood Ikhwan lobby.
Well, as you relay what you believe to be happening there in Washington, D.C., what implications does this hold for the future Christian families not only in Iraq but across the Middle East? You mentioned the Copts in Egypt and other Christians elsewhere. Are we going to see increasing hostility and increasing persecution of Christians, especially in the Middle East?
Well, the persecution of Christians come along with the persecution of civil societies and of Muslim moderates as well. I just would like to note that there was a doctor, a PhD professor in Mosul, University of Mosul, who 48 hours ago was trying to oppose ISIS, those jihadists. Why are you doing this to the Christians? What did they do to him? They executed him. So this is a universal threat against the Christian minorities in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in Egypt with the Copts, as you just mentioned, but also in other parts. In Iran, they have been executed, are in jail, in Libya, in Lebanon. And all of that is because of the rise of the jihadists. The more you have jihadists and Islamic fundamentalism going up, the more you're going to have persecution against not just the Christian minorities, but all civil societies and Muslim moderates as well.
Walid, you mentioned the execution of a PhD there in Mosul for standing up to what ISIS has promoted now and announced is the modern caliphate. Does that execution actually increase the power of this emerging caliphate? Does this become a recruitment tool for more jihadists?
We have a race in the Middle East. On the one hand, you have those jihadists who are through execution, as I said, of Christians, of Baha'is, of Muslim moderates, of anybody who's against their view. And that is a tool to mobilize their own troops. That is a tool that reminds us of how the National Socialists used to deal with their opponents in the 30s. That would be Jews and Catholics and Protestants and minorities of all sorts, to mobilize their own forces. And that's what the jihadists are trying to do. But that is not going to intimidate the resistance. Look, in Egypt, 33 million Egyptians, many Muslims and some Christians rose against the Muslim Brotherhood and brought them down. In Tunisia, in the same way. So, yes, the jihadists are going up, but there will be resistance. The difference is going to be the position of this administration. If we are going to side with the Muslim Brotherhood as we did in the past, Christian minorities will suffer.
Walid, we appreciate your assessment, and we heard you strike that historical reference to what transpired in Europe in the 1930s involving Nazi Germany. That is a compelling picture, and we always appreciate your comments, Dr. Walid Phares. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
So we heard from Walid. He compares this to what went on with Nazi Germany in the 30s in terms of the persecution of the Jews. Your take on it, we'd love to have your comments. Why don't you tweet them to us at NewsmaxTV, #Americas Forum, and we're coming right back.